Welcome back after the snooze fest, also known as the Monaco Grand Prix 2024. Midway through the race, I was as sleepy as a college student during a 7 a.m. lecture, a cat in a sunbeam, a koala after a eucalyptus binge, a panda after a bamboo feast, and me on a Sunday afternoon after a brunch. Charles Leclerc has eventually managed to overcome his demons and has won the Monaco Grand Prix. He has beaten the Monaco curse eventually. To understand what the Monaco curse is, let's go back in history. Back in 2017, when he was still in Formula 2, he was racing for Prema Racing, for whom he got a pole at Monte Carlo, but then eventually he had to pit, also had some problem with suspension, so therefore he had to retire, which leads to Monaco curse 1, Charles Leclerc 0. Then we move to 2018 when he finally gets a seat in Formula 1 with Sauber. He's having a decent race. He was supposed to finish the race for the first time, but then on lap 72, with 6 laps to go, Leclerc was chasing Toro Rosso's Brendan Hartley. Where is he right now? Brendan Hartley.
Let's see where it's Brendan Hartley. Okay.
But then his brakes fail and he crashes onto the back of Hartley, which leads to a DNF at the home race. So Monaco curse 2, Charles Leclerc 0. Then in 2019, he had a very poor quali and got eliminated in Q1 itself and started at P15 because of the grid penalty to Antonio Giovinazzi. But then he had a small duel with Nico Hülkenberg from Renault then, which led to damage, and he eventually retired on lap 16. So Monaco curse 3, Charles Leclerc 0. Now we go on to 2020. So because of COVID, he gets a free run and he doesn't have to race. Then in 2021, he returned back to his home again and he somehow got the pole. But then as soon as he got the pole, he did a Schumacher and rammed into the wall soon after, which led to him completely retiring the car for the entire weekend, which makes the Monaco curse 4, Charles Leclerc 0. We then have the recent race at 2022 Monaco Grand Prix, where he gets the pole. He starts well off behind the safety car, but then as soon as the rain reduces, the Ferrari brought him up to swap from the wet to the intermediates, but soon after called him again for the hards. It eventually became a bit embarrassing for Ferrari, and thanks to Ferrari's screw up this time, he eventually loses again and finishes at P4. So the Monaco curse 5, Charles Leclerc 0. But then his nightmares don't end there, do they? He tries to take Niki Lauda's 1974 Ferrari for a run again during one of the historic Grand Prix events and manages to crash that as well because of some brake failure. So Monaco curse 6, Charles Leclerc 0. They always say that the 7th time is the luckiest one because Thala for a reason. And finally, he overcame his demon and won the home race, because this time, my friends, he didn't have to do a pit stop, which just avoided the Ferrari factor. So that's like 99% of the race when already in the back. He had a set of duels with Oscar Piastri for most of the race, who was also getting tagged along by Carlos Sainz, and all three were like mostly driving with just 1.5 seconds between them. It was a very close race in terms of the front bat, but then after Norris we then see whatever you want to call it, George Baghdadi Russell or Osama bin Russell, because this was at lap 12 and the difference between Russell and Norris is 3 seconds. After lap 18, this difference grows up to 8 seconds. 12 at 22nd lap. Oh my god. And then Lewis Hamilton pits, followed by Max Verstappen's pit, and even with the new tires, Max Verstappen is not able to make an overtake on George Russell because it's Monaco. You are not going to make overtakes here. And since we are already on to overtakes, let's just discuss overtakes for this race. We had one overtake from Valtteri Bottas on, and you won't believe it, the rest of the overtakes were mostly from Lance Inbred Stroll, who had his window licking movement at lap
46.
which eventually led to him pitting again for softs. And then with the softs, he made 3 overtakes. Oscar Piastri had a decent race overall. Oscar Piastri had the pace, and I think if either of Carlos Sainz or Oscar Piastri would have got the pole, I don't think anyone else would have overtaken them, because one, it's Monaco, and second, they had the safety car, they had the red flag earlier, so everyone just changed the tires beforehand itself. So yeah, now looking back at my prediction for that race, I had predicted Oscar Piastri at first, Charles Leclerc at second, and Max Verstappen at third. I am sorry about Max Verstappen because I had no idea how screwed up Red Bull is right now, because Sergio Perez didn't even qualify for Q3. Max Verstappen qualifies at fifth.
Right, almost killed myself.
But I was this close, guys. Come on, I was this close, guys. I should get my credits regarding predicting Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc as the top 2. So yeah, that was a close one. And by close ones, I am reminded of the French Civil War that happened in lap 1 when Esteban Ocon decides to overtake Pierre Gasly just at the right-hander after the hairpin, with which the Alpine team didn't look happy at all. Bruno Famin mentioning later in the interview that this might lead to consequences for Esteban Ocon. So this means Tata for Esteban Ocon, because this was one race where Alpine actually looked a decent car, right? They were very close to a top 10 finish for both the drivers, and they didn't actually have to worry much about strategies or their car performance or anything. Both the drivers had qualified decently well, if not for that brain fade movement by Ocon. And by brain fade moments, I am reminded of the lap 1 incident involving Checo Perez and the Haasers. Checo Perez didn't have the best of the turn 3, and then eventually K-Max saw some space, he tried to squeeze in, but then Checo tries to just fend him off, which leads to the rear of Checo touching with K-Mac, leading to him spinning, and eventually Nico Hülkenberg, who just tried to dodge that entire sequence, got held up again by Checo's rear, leading to all 3 of them retiring. The stewards eventually said that it's a racing incident, which, to be fair, yes, the Danish guy got himself saved from another penalty which would have surely led to a race ban, but then he survives to get a race ban probably later in Canada. And by Canada, oh my god, I'm just getting too much reminders today. It's the home Grand Prix for someone on the grid. I won't say the name. So we saw earlier this year a win for Lando Norris. We then saw a win for Charles Leclerc at his home GP, and then we have the home GP for a Canadian, Lance Inbred Stroll. I don't expect him to qualify even for Q2, but then you know what? We have 2 weeks to figure that out. So if you liked the video, drop a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, please subscribe, please, and see you all in the next video. Ciao!